Hello everyone, I'm Aditya Pandey, a PhD candidate at Northeastern University, and the title of my talk is Task and Data Considerations for Design and Recommendation of Tree Visualizations. Tree visualizations are used to represent hierarchical information in a dataset. The representation of information in the form of trees has existed for centuries. However, in the last few decades, there has been a rapid rise in the usage of tree visualization. Today, tree visualizations are used in fields like evolutionary biology, public health, politics, and finance. Tree visualizations have been a central part of my visualization career. Ever since I started my journey in the field of data visualization, I've had the opportunity to work on a number of interesting tree visualization problems. One thing that I would like to highlight in my projects are the wide design choices available to visualize tree data. I have selected these four projects to show the variety of tree visualization techniques designers have at their disposal. Availability of large design space allows practitioners and designers to be more expressive, but at the same time, it also poses the challenge of choosing an appropriate tree visualization. In my career, I had to figure out appropriate tree visualization in different roles and capacities. Fortunately, being able to look at the design process of tree visualizations from the perspective of a researcher and a practitioner allowed me to identify key challenges of choosing an appropriate tree visualization encoding. A key problem that I noticed in the process of designing tree visualization was the large gap that existed between tree visualization theory and practice. Simply put, this gap means that the practitioners are unable to catch up with the progress of visualization theory. In my experience, the gap gives rise to two problems in visualization design. First, the empirical results that are being produced in visualization research are probably not percolating into practice, which can lead to inefficient or even in some cases incorrect design decisions. Second, practitioners are only using a subset of available design space, which may limit their potential of being expressive with their visualization design. Over the last few years, there has been an effort from the visualization community to bridge the gap between theory and practice. The community has developed theoretical resources like design frameworks and process models to help designers think about their design choices systematically. On a more practical front, there are exploratory tools like websites that provide prescriptive guidance to practitioners on how to choose their visualizations. And last but not the least are tools like Tableau and Voyager that take empirical results from visualization research and offer it in the form of visualization recommendations. When I analyzed these resources, I found that they have limited support for tree visualization. More specifically, the theoretical frameworks and methodologies offer limited specificity to abstract tasks, and the exploratory tools and recommendation systems support a limited number of tree visualizations, and their guidance is primarily based on data and not based on tasks of the users. These challenges led me to my thesis research question: how can we develop theory, identify visualization best practices, and build applications that enables visualization practitioners to create effective and expressive tree visualizations? To make the research more tangible, I broke down the overarching research question into three separate research problems. First, I learned and applied design study methodology in a number of visualization projects and retrospectively analyzed the shortcomings or challenges I faced in the methodology. Next, I used the challenges as an opportunity to enhance the existing theory for design of tree visualizations, and in the process also surveyed and collected guidelines to inform the design of tree visualizations. Finally, I plan to use the knowledge gathered in the process to create a recommendation system to assist practitioners in identifying tree visualizations based on their data and task requirements. Before we discuss the individual problems, I would like to summarize the high-level contributions of my work. At a high level, contributions of this thesis include development of novel tree and network visualizations for medical science, personal informatics, and cybersecurity, identification of tree visualization specific gaps in design study theory, and extension of the theory to fill the gaps, survey of guidelines to select tree visualizations based on tasks and data, and design and development of novel recommendation systems for visualizations. In the first part of my research, I worked on learning and applying the design theory in the context of tree visualizations with an aim to identify its challenges and shortcomings. The goal of this phase of my research was to validate the theoretical resources that are available for visualization practitioners for designing tree visualizations. To assist visualization practitioners in conducting design studies, Tamara Munzner proposed the nested model of visualization design. Within the model, our work sits at the data and task abstraction and visualization encoding stage. These stages are important because an error at these stages can lead to an incorrect task abstraction or incorrect visual design. Therefore, to support these stages further, Bremer and Munzer proposed a three-part analysis framework that can act as a secondary scaffold to guide practitioners through this process. A key challenge with these resources is that they have been developed to serve the broader visualization design space. As a result, there is a chance that these frameworks may not be optimized. To test how well the three-part design analysis framework works for tree visualizations, I applied it to all my design projects. In the interest of time, I will only discuss my project CerebroVis, which was a novel layout for visualizing cerebral arteries in the human brain. Broadly, I found that the three-part analysis framework does support tree visualization design, and it helped me guide through the design process. However, more specifically, I noticed that the task abstraction support for tree visualization was limited in the framework and the design theory. To explain the lack of task abstraction specificity, we will discuss a couple of task abstraction examples from the CerebroVis design study. The first task is stenosis detection. Stenosis occurs when a cerebral artery abnormally narrows due to accumulation of plaque. To detect it, doctors compare the width of suspected arteries with its hierarchical neighbors like the parent and the child. The second task is finding missing arteries. To find missing arteries, doctors compare the distribution of arteries in the left and right brain and then use the comparison as a benchmark to diagnose if some arteries were missing from a human brain. When we asked doctors about these tasks, they told us that they're very different tasks. Stenosis detection is a local comparison of hierarchical elements, whereas the task of finding missing arteries is a broader task and requires a holistic comparison of the arteries in the left and right brain. However, despite these differences, we found out that the task abstraction theory categorized both the tasks to a blanket category of compared topology. Therefore, we noticed that the current theory lacked the specificity to describe the different parts of tree topology that concerns a task. After identification of task abstraction specificity limitation, my research direction shifted on how can we enhance the task abstraction theory and build practical resources to assist tree visualization designers. To extend the task abstraction theory, we surveyed tree visualization tasks from published papers. We performed a meta-analysis of the tasks to recognize ways in which we can improve the abstraction specificity. We found that the limitation of the theory was mostly due to the shallow treatment of the tree visualization targets. As a result, we contributed a more extensive list of tree visualization targets. The slide presents an oversimplified version of the research. There were many interesting results and challenges that we faced in the course of this project, but in the interest of time, I will move on to the research questions that are currently more open ended, as I can directly apply the feedback from the panel on those projects. After the survey, we found out that there's a lot of diversity in terms of the tasks a user can perform with tree visualizations. However, there are not many resources that support task based selection of tree visualization. Therefore, as a part of my ongoing project, I'm trying to build guidelines that can help visualization designers to identify a tree visualization encoding based on analytical tree visualization tasks of the user. As this is an ongoing project, I will briefly discuss the methodology we are using to build the guidelines. In this survey, we found a large number of papers that had empirical results about effectiveness of tree visualizations with different tasks.
We have collected all the results, and based on a meta analysis, we are trying to come up with a ranking for task accuracy and task completion types for visualizations. The table on the right is a teaser of how the final results will look like. As this is still an open question, I would like to ask the panelists if they have recommendations or any alternative strategies that I can use to build the guidelines. Eventually, I want to produce a practical resource for visualization designers to navigate through the large design space of tree visualization. In my opinion, a visualization recommendation system created on the basis of my research will be the most meaningful culmination of my thesis. In this section, I will first discuss my ongoing project where I'm building a recommendation system for genomics visualization. Then I will discuss how my experience of working with genomics visualization will translate to development of a tree visualization recommendation system. Genomics is an interdisciplinary field of biology focusing on analysis of structure, function, and evolution of genomes. Over the year, hundreds of tools and techniques have been designed to visualize genomics data. Our goal is to build a recommendation system that can support genomic analysts to find these tools based on their data and task requirements. There are two main components of the recommendation system: the input space and the visualization taxonomy. The goal of the recommendation system is to map the data and task input to the appropriate parts of visualization taxonomy. For this mapping, we have developed recommendation rules by surveying perceptual guideline information in the visualization research. Once the input data and tasks are mapped to the appropriate parts of the visualization taxonomy, then, using the taxonomy, we can identify the most appropriate visualization technique. For tree visualizations, we are trying to replicate the methodology used for genomics visualization. The core idea remains the same. A user will be able to input data and task specification, which will then be mapped to the tree visualization design taxonomy, and using the recommendation rules, we will find the most appropriate tree visualizations to be suggested. However, there is still an open research question which can make the task of developing tree visualization recommendation system non-trivial. Unlike the genomic visualization case, the visualization taxonomy of tree visualization is not well defined. There has been some prior work done to define the tree visualization taxonomy based on dimensionality, alignment, and space usage techniques, but more work needs to be done in this space in order to develop the recommendation system. Another open question in the recommendation system research is the selection of a recommendation system evaluation methodology. Currently, I identified three main methods to validate the recommendation system: a controlled lab study, where a group of participants familiar with tree visualization will report their experience. In the long run, I would like to release the tool to the community and see for factors like adoption. The third method can be application of the tool in a classroom setting. The idea is to use recommendation system for student projects. I'm particularly excited about this method because it simulates a real-world industry scenario, fits very well with the intended audience of the recommendation system. I started with the goal of building tools and resources for visualization practitioners to create effective and expressive tree visualizations. I believe the last phase of my research is in sync with my goals, and my research till date equips me with necessary resources to complete this last bit. I strongly hope that the successful completion of my thesis will act as a motivation for the research community to invest more time and efforts in bridging the gap between visualization theory and practice. My long-term career goal is to become a research scientist or an R&D engineer in the domain of medical science or healthcare, with a specialization in data visualization. However, after graduation, I'm looking for a postdoc position to enhance my research portfolio. Before I end my talk, I would like to thank my fantastic thesis committee, as none of this work would have been possible without their amazing support. I would also like to acknowledge the organizations that have funded my work. Finally, to kick off the discussion, I have listed some questions for the panel.